let's talk about Joker. The second Joker movie is coming out, so what better time to look at the legacy of Batman's greatest enemy? Who is this character? How has he been portrayed? What are his hallmarks? Why does he keep showing up again and again? Now, in my humble opinion, the version of this character we got in Todd Phillips' Joker movie was probably more different than any other version that we'd seen previously. Now, to explain why I think that, we need a little context. So one of the creators of Joker, a man named Bill Finger, was inspired by a particular film called The Man Who Laughs, which came out in 1928. It tells the story of a man who is disfigured in such a way that his face is permanently stuck in a grotesque kind of smile. And this movie is based on a novel by Victor Hugo, the same author who wrote things like The Hunchback of Notre Dame and Les Mis. I know this seems like a tangent, but stick with me. At one point, the main character gives a speech and says, "I am a symbol. O you all-powerful fools, open your eyes. I represent all. I embody humanity as its masters have made it." I did find this really interesting because many iterations of the Joker use him as a reflection of society, which it seems like Hugo was doing with his character. Hugo was touching on this idea where people live in such an oppressive society. They no longer have the will to fight, and all they can do in response to their own tragedy is laugh. The Joker usually represents something similar. He represents that point where things become so bleak that it just feels like nothing matters anymore. Life is one big joke. And he's usually out to prove that to the world by committing senseless, heinous crimes. And the reason Batman is the antithesis to the Joker is that he's a man who will never give up. He'll never stop in his fight for life, for justice, for the hope that society can get better. So this man, Bill Finger, watches the movie The Man Who Laughs. He brings a picture to the movie to his fellow creators, Bob Kane and Jerry Robinson. After seeing the picture, Jerry Robinson comes up with this sketch. And he was originally meant to be this sort of dark, kind of sadistic killer. But as comics ebb and flow with society, he was sort of transformed more into a lighthearted tone, kind of like a playful prankster, which we see represented in his first live-action portrayal. Cesar Romero played the first live-action Joker in the 1966 Adam West Batman.
Have a shake on me. A joke a day keeps the gloom away.
Of course, future versions of the character would become much darker, but he did seem to start the tradition of every live-action Joker having a very iconic laugh. The next live-action Joker was portrayed by Jack Nicholson in Tim Burton's 1989 Batman. Regardless of your opinion on this movie, I think it's hard to argue that Nicholson is a blast to watch.
You can call me Joker. And as you can see, I'm a lot happier.
He somehow finds the balance of appealing to the tradition of the character while also still being very Jack Nicholson.
What kind of a world we live in where a man dressed up as a bat gets all of my press. This town needs an enema.
Backstories for the Joker, how he became this way, who he was before, can vary pretty wildly. But in this version, he's actually responsible for killing Bruce Wayne's parents. Before he becomes the Joker, he's known as Jack Napier. When he kills Thomas and Martha Wayne, he's just a two-bit criminal. But over time, he rises up in the organized crime world and becomes right-hand man to a big-time mobster. The mobster sets him up in a sort of sting operation, which ends up with him cornered by police and Batman in a chemical factory. You can guess what happens next. He falls in a vat of chemicals. This results in his bleached skin and his face stuck in this sort of horrific smile. There's been a number of actors who have portrayed Joker in animated projects, and many of them have done a fantastic job. But I think easily the most recognized is Mark Hamill's portrayal. For those of you out there that might not be so great with actor names, Mark Hamill's other famous role is, of course, Luke Skywalker. Hamill nails an absolutely perfect tone that's somewhere between silly, genuinely comedic, and absolutely sinister.
Say, is it hot in here or is it just me? Harv, open that door so we can get a breeze.
Good idea.
No!
And the laugh, honestly, might be the most recognizable of all Joker laughs. Our next live-action version of the Joker was honestly kind of revolutionary. And that was, of course, Heath Ledger's performance in The Dark Knight. This movie just had so many moments that clearly just took the wind out of the audience. And that's in no small part thanks to Heath Ledger's performance. Of course, this part of the story ends in an absolute tragedy with the passing of Heath Ledger before the movie even comes out. Nonetheless, his work on this film was truly something special. Apart from the visual distinctions of the character, which probably deserve their own discussion, something really interesting is his backstory or lack thereof. The Joker actually tells his own origin story several times in the movie. The only problem is each of these stories is completely different.
You want to know how I got these scars? My father was a drinker.
Well, you look nervous. Is it the scars? beautiful. Like you.
Why does he do this? Well, I think it's up for interpretation, but one way to look at it is that he holds a lot of power in being able to change his story based on the circumstances. In each instance, he's trying to instill fear in somebody and weaponizes his background to cater to that specific victim. It adds a lot to his mystery, but even more so, his cunning intellect. I think this version of the Joker highlights probably better than any of the other screen versions that he truly is a criminal mastermind. Truth be told, we don't have a lot of information or screen time for our next live-action version of the Joker, which is Jared Leto's version in Suicide Squad. According to some behind-the-scenes info, apparently a lot of footage was shot for this version of the Joker, according to Jared Leto himself, enough to make a whole Joker movie, but most of it was left out of the final cut. What we do know is that Jared Leto was going for a kind of punk rock gangster vibe. He's got tattoos all over his body, and he pretty much entirely drops the comedic aspect of the character. Even Heath Ledger's take on the character, which was incredibly serious, had those moments of silly brevity.
You think you could steal from us and just walk away?
Yeah.
I'm putting the word.
But Jared Leto's version is almost always trying to be menacing. If he cracks a joke or laughs, it's just always meant to put his enemies on edge.
Blah, 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 blah. All of that chit-chat's gonna get you hurt.
Now, another really brief version of the character that we've gotten was Barry Keoghan's version in The Batman. In the actual movie, we only ever really hear the Joker's voice at the end when he's talking to the Riddler in Arkham Asylum.
Hey, don't be sad. You did so well.
But the filmmakers did release a deleted scene where Batman is doing a Silence of the Lambs, and he's talking to the Joker in hopes the Joker will help him catch the Riddler.
You're just terrified. Because you're not sure he's wrong, huh?
Like I said, we don't see much, but what we do see is very grotesque, and I'm confident this will not be the last we see of Barry Keoghan's version of the Joker. But then we come to Joaquin Phoenix's version of the character, which we see in the Todd Phillips Joker movies. I said that I thought this might be the most different screen version of the Joker that we'd yet seen. And I think that's mostly true. For one, his traditional colors, both in makeup and his suit, are a little bit different. They're actually closer to that Cesar Romero version. Another is that there's no significant physical disfigurement on his face. Most versions of the Joker have a pretty dramatic injury that results in a permanent smile. Another distinction is that this version of the character, named Arthur Fleck, couldn't be further from a criminal mastermind. In fact, I would argue that the movie portrays him becoming an iconic figure almost by accident. Therein lies probably the biggest difference. The specific backstory given to this version of the character paints him in a very different light from the other representations of Joker. Arthur isn't hatching any schemes here, he's just simply mentally unstable. Of course, all the Jokers were insane, but not quite in the way Arthur Fleck is. Most versions of the Joker are sociopaths. They feel no remorse for the crimes they commit, but even still, there's that kind of cunning intelligence to their evil. By the end of Joker, Arthur Fleck is definitely a sociopath, but in the journey to get there, he's portrayed with a much more realistic and depressing kind of mental illness.
I don't need you to tell me lies. I know it seems strange. I don't mean to make you uncomfortable. I don't know why everyone is so rude. I don't know why you are. I don't want anything from you. Maybe a little bit of warmth, maybe a hug, Dad.
He doesn't quite understand how the world works. He struggles to interact with people. He's sad, depressed, lonely, and angry. And the movie seems to argue that when societies turn their back on people like Arthur, they create monsters. A lot more could be said and discussed here, but in short, even though a lot of the hallmarks of the character are stripped away here, the purpose of the character remains essentially the same. Especially if we go back to The Man Who Laughs, where the point was to hold up a mirror to the ugly parts of society. How any iteration of the character chooses to do this, what exactly they're saying, whether they said it effectively, that's up to you. But it should be interesting to see how the filmmakers build on that concept in the new Joker movie. I'd love to hear what you think of it when you see it, so let me know.